Welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole Quilts. I'm Tessa, and this is my YouTube channel about quilting. I started sewing when I was a child and transitioned into quilting in my 20s and have been making blankets for family and friends ever since. Today I thought we would make a quilt that I designed by myself called the Finish Line Quilt. So I'll be explaining how to make the blocks and put it together. I have this white that has a great swirl pattern through it. I've chosen this black that has some light speckling through it. And then this wonderful raspberry and teal colors. Now the block itself is composed mostly of 2.5-inch strips, but there is a 1-inch or a 4.5-inch strip in it. So the individual block will look like this, and we're going to start with the black and white part of it. So we're going to go ahead and cut our strips. These are all 2.5-inch strips, and we'll need 6 white and 6 black in order to make the quilt. So let's go ahead and get started cutting those. Now some people like to layer their fabric, so they would layer the black and the white, but I like to cut each color individually. That way if I mess up, I don't mess up both the fabrics. So there's my first strip. And my second one. I'm not sure how you guys like to do it, but I like to use the grid on the ruler itself for my measurements. I don't like to use the mat. I've experienced where the mat isn't exactly correct, and so that throws it off. So we've cut a couple white. Let's do a couple of the black ones so that we can start putting those together. Just going to line it up down here. Make sure my edge is straight. Now, some of you may be super tidy quilters or sewers and tuck everything away. I unfortunately am not, and so I just put everything aside and I will clean up at the end. Okay, that will get us started. So we're just going to take these over to the sewing machine and we're going to sew them together into strips, and then we will subcut those strips into 2.5-inch sections. Now when I'm putting strip sets together, I don't usually pin them. I usually just go ahead and sew. I've set my machine up for the 1/4-inch width on it, so that with the 1/4-inch foot, so that I don't have to try to make sure I'm exactly on the line all the time. It helps guide it. All right, now that we've got the black and the white strip sewn together, we need to go ahead and press them. And we always press to the dark side so that you don't see the black coming through the white. So I'm going to go ahead and press this down. Got to be careful when using steam or anything else that you don't distort the strip. We want it nice and straight. After getting all of these strips together like this, we're going to go ahead and we're going to subcut them into 2.5 inch wide sections. So let's go ahead and do that. We need to start by getting rid of our selvages. We don't want those. And you will just continue cutting until you have the entire strip cut. And in order to make the quilt as shown, you will need to have 6 of these sets, and you will need to cut all of them down so that you have, look here, you will need 42 blocks, so you'll have to have 42 sets. So let's just cut a couple more, and then we will go ahead and sew them together. And we will start the next part of the block. So we're just going to nest these together right at the seam. So they're black and white like a checkered flag. Let's get those in there good. Once we have our sections sewed together, we just want to open up, check them, make sure that they came together good right at the point there, and then we're going to press them open. So we're going to press the seam, and then we are going to go ahead and press them to the side. Now you can go ahead and starch them if you like. I like to put just a little starch on them so they stay really nice and crisp. It makes bringing, when you join the other blocks to it, it makes it a lot easier. So now we have 2 of our beginnings of blocks. So that's the corner block. Now we're going to work on the next section of the block, which would be this one here. And that is basically made the same way. We're going to do strips like this. Here's an example of it. We're just going to cut 2.5. We're going to cut 2.5 inch strips, one of the blue, one of the raspberry. We're going to sew those together, and then we're going to subcut them into 2.5 inch sections, just like we did with the black and the white ones. Then we're going to cut another 2.5 inch strip, and from that we are going to cut 4.5 inch rectangles. These little rectangles that will butt up against the strips we just cut. So let me go ahead and cut some of those off, and we will join those up so that you can see what they look like. Just measure them, 2.5 inches. And 2.5 inches. Now you can see from the block that basically one goes this way and one goes this way. So you're going to be basically making the same block. It's just going to be how it's set into the whole block. It's going to be turned a little bit for one. So I've already cut some of the 4.5 inch sections, and we are just going to join those up to the 2.5 inch sections we cut, just like this, just 1/4 inch seam. We're going to sew those. Once again, we're just sewing on the 1/4 inch line. And one more. Alright, so we've got our sections made. We've sewn the 2.5 inch strip of the teal the teal and the raspberry together, along with the 4.5 inch raspberries. We're just going to go ahead and press those. Once again, a little starch on it so it has a nice crisp seam. And one more, so we have 2 of them for our block. All right. So we have the 2 of them along with our original piece here. So you can see it coming together. We have that one there. We're going to position this one here. This one positions here. So all we're missing is the corner piece right here, which is a 4.5 by 4.5 inch square block. All you need to do is cut a 4.5 inch strip out of the blue. I've gone ahead and already cut that and subcut into 4.5 inch squares. So it will fit right in here. And we're going to just go ahead and we're going to join these 2 pieces together, and we're going to join these 2 pieces together to form those units, and then we will sew the whole thing together into one block. Alright, so all the component pieces are sewn together now. The black and white section that we made, the raspberry teal section that we made, and then the 4.5 inch block. Also together they look like this. The quilt itself is made of 42 of those together, followed by a 1.5 inch border and then a 4 inch border. So I'm going to go ahead and sew those pieces up so you can see what it's going to look like when it's all done, and I will be back to you just shortly. So I'm all done sewing the blocks together, and I've started to arrange them into rows. The first row is row A, and it's comprised of blocks that are arranged with the checkerboard part of it pointing outwards. You'll sew 3 sets of those together and then attach them to each other just like you see in the picture. The second row is row B, and in row B the blocks are arranged with the checkerboards facing each other. And you'll once again make 3 sets of those and then sew them all together
as a group of 6 to form your next row. In total, you will have 4 A rows and 3 B rows.
Border on, which is a 1.5 inch border. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut a couple of these and join them together so that you can see how to do that. In total, you will need 8 1.5 inch strips in order to get all the way around it. We're going to go ahead, we're going to trim off the selvages here. Gotta make sure they're straight or we're going to get a crooked line going. Now we're going to join these at an angle rather than butt them together. It just makes a nicer finish. So the first one on the bottom, it goes horizontally, and the second one goes vertically, and you match up the corners right here. And then you can just take your 4-inch square and you go from the corner out. Just make sure your line is lined up there. Draw it in. And then we're just going to go ahead and we're going to sew right on that line. In total, you will need 8 1.5 inch strips. Alright, so the first inner border is on. You can see it going around here. It's just a 1.5 inch border. And I do need to make a correction. You only need 6 1.5 inch strips. If you seam them all end to end, then measure them out individually for each side. 6 strips should be plenty for the 1.5 inch border. The next border is the 4.5 inch teal or blue border. I went ahead and cut these strips already, and I'm going to sew them together and add them to the quilt, and I will be right back with how that looks. So the outside borders are now on, and you can see that it's all finished. The borders, if you want to add, additional, you could change the color of your binding. I intend to bind mine with a black binding just to bring out just a little bit more. But if you liked what you saw on my YouTube channel, click on the like button, subscribe to my channel, and thank you for watching.